I guess everyone was talking about the stars, which you see, I guess, during a full solar eclipse, but we'll have to wait. The next one, as you guys mentioned, that in North America that we can see will be in 2024, and it will move up from Texas all the way up towards Newfoundland. So I know our viewers in Newfoundland really didn't get the best view yesterday. It was only about 30%, but in 7 years, it is your time. This morning, if it is your time to head out the door, this is what you're anticipating, or in terms of temperature, really warm in eastern Canada. Look at these current temperatures, 24 right now in the city of Toronto. So we compare that to some of the western cities. Saskatoon, you're at 10, Calgary 10 as well, 16 in Vancouver. So definitely still very hot and humid in the east. And that humidity, that heat in the air is really contributing to a risk of thunderstorm later on today. We need a couple things for thunderstorms. The ingredients are heat, humidity, but then you need some kind of lift. And often that lift can come in the form of a cold front. And that's what we're seeing with this low that's situated right over northern Ontario. There's our front there, so already prompting severe weather south of the border. But this sets us up for a very tricky situation this afternoon where severe weather is for sure possible through eastern and central Ontario, then through southern Quebec as well. This is the outlook for 3:30 Eastern time, and you can see that we get into these pockets of really intense cells right across Lake Ontario, east of Georgian Bay, northeastern Ontario, and then through central Quebec. In eastern Ontario, there's the risk of hail, heavy downpours, wind gusts up to 90 kilometers an hour, and possible tornadoes. I'm giving that warning now. There's no warnings from Environment Canada yet, but I would not be surprised if we do see watches and warnings for eastern Ontario issued later on today. In fact, we already have some watches in place for southern Quebec. We'll get there in just a second. These storms continue to slide eastward and track very slowly between Montreal up towards Quebec City and the eastern townships as we head through the evening tonight. Then eventually we start to see that introduction of the precipitation into New Brunswick as well. So that comes early tomorrow morning. This low really just circulates. You can see that counterclockwise rotation for the next couple of days through Wednesday and then into the wee hours of Thursday right across Newfoundland. Cape Breton, you've got showers to start you off on Thursday morning. Then in behind that, we still see that unsettled weather continue across the Great Lakes Thursday afternoon. We're not done with the rain just yet. So in terms of your severe weather, it's a widespread area with that risk of thunderstorms. East of Toronto, as we're heading up through Kingston, Belleville, up towards Ottawa, Montreal, and Sherbrooke, that's where we're seeing a more moderate risk of severe weather. And as I mentioned, there is the possibility of some rotation in eastern Ontario. Severe thunderstorm watches are already in place, including Montreal and then through portions of the eastern townships because of that likelihood of active weather later on this afternoon. So please stay sky aware. Make sure you're staying in touch with Environment Canada with any watches or warnings that do get issued in your area. And if it's safe to do so, please send me your photos. That's a look at what's happening this morning in the east. Coming up, we've got Western Canada's forecast. For now, here's what's happening a little closer to home. The Earth there, that's the shadow of the moon passing in front of the sun, and it is spectacular. Yesterday, I hope you got a view of it. If you had sunshine, I hope you enjoyed it regardless of the eclipse that was happening yesterday, because many areas today dealing with a much rainier, stormier forecast. And already this morning, we've got thunderstorms raging right across the Ontario-Quebec boundary. Very noisy storms, a whole lot of rain with them and very gusty winds as well. And then north of that, you're seeing this widespread area with rain. So this is part of a very large low-pressure system that's moving through not just Canada, but also south of the border. And it's prompting the risk of severe weather later on today. Already this morning, which is unusual, we don't often see it this early, to have severe thunderstorm watches in place for all areas in the pink. And Montreal, you can see, that includes you. This afternoon and this evening, we're getting into a position where very strong wind gusts, heavy downpours, large hail, and possible rotation is possible with these storms. Not only that, but eastern Ontario, pretty well east of Toronto, or even on the east end of Toronto, all the way along the 401 up through Kingston, Belleville, up towards Ottawa. That's where we could see this risk of more severe storms. West of that, we're still in a thunderstorm situation. The intensity just looks likelier to be a little bit less, but widespread thunderstorms really right across Ontario today. Sault Ste. Marie, I wouldn't even rule out a thunderstorm for you as well. Please keep that in mind with the forecast. And again, stay tuned for more watches and warnings as they get issued from Environment Canada. Canada. Weather.gc.ca is their website, and that's where you can find the most up-to-date information through the afternoon. Montreal, Sherbrooke, Quebec City are all under that risk of thunderstorms. As we head over to Atlantic Canada, there's the possibility that overnight tonight into the wee hours of tomorrow, you might see some thunderstorms developing through New Brunswick. Otherwise, look at these temperatures today. 31 today in Fredericton, 28 in Sydney, Nova Scotia. Gander, you've got a risk of thunderstorm, but these temperatures are pretty fabulous. So we'll just slide through our forecaster. You can see these widespread storms. They've got significant intensity of that rainfall, and then eventually in towards Wednesday and Thursday, we see this activity slide its way through Atlantic Canada, really hugging that coastline of Nova Scotia. In behind that, more unsettled weather will continue for the Great Lakes as we head eclipse, and I thought this is the only time I had to put my son down for a nap, and this is the only time I can do the eclipse photo, and it was so blown out, and I was so mad. But I'm not mad anymore. I'm really excited.
Now you have a picture of the eclipse.
Yes. Just have to wait 7 more years, and then I'll get a better one. This morning, if you are starting off your day in Eastern Canada, it's really warm. If you're starting off your day in the West, well, it is cooler, but temperatures in the West are fairly seasonal this morning, if not a wee bit warmer. Into the afternoon, the heat is on for the West, but for the afternoon in the East, storms are on deck, and we've got a significant thunderstorm risk, particularly east of Toronto, heading up through the capital region, through Ottawa, Montreal, Eastern Townships as well. In fact, we do have severe thunderstorm watches in place already for Metro Montreal, and I would not be surprised if this gets extended further west into eastern and portions of central Ontario. Here's the thing. We've got heavy rainfall expected, possible hail, very strong wind gusts, and the possibility of rotation in eastern Ontario through southern Quebec. It is going to be a difficult afternoon, and please stay tuned to any watches or warnings that do get extended in your area. If you see that sky get dark, if you start to hear thunder, please head indoors. That'll be the safest spot for you this afternoon. Heading into tomorrow, we start to see that weather improve west to east, so that is some good news. But today in Atlantic Canada, that's the place to be. It's hot, it's humid today, 31 in Fredericton, 22 in Yarmouth, lots of sunshine there. Thunderstorms across much of central and southern Quebec, including right along the St. Lawrence through Quebec City, down through the eastern townships. Ottawa, you're included in that. Pretty well all of Ontario dealing with thunderstorms, though the more severe action, as I mentioned, will likely be east of Toronto and then portions of the northeast. The rest of the province can just expect a rumbly day, similar to what we're seeing set up this morning. Sunshine returns as we hit Winnipeg, 22, a little more sun than yesterday. It was pretty cloudy yesterday for that eclipse viewing. And then we see nice warm temperatures as we head through the rest of Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and then into BC as well. The thing to know with BC is we're seeing that, again, that air quality advisory continue for the interior. Smoke continues to be an issue with that fire, and with high pressure building in, it's likely not to go anywhere anytime soon. So keep that in mind. That's a look across the country this morning. Now we'll send it over to Anne-Marie.
Thanks, Kelsey.
This morning, we are seeing temperatures rather warm in the east and cooler for the west. I mean, we're already in the 20s for Montreal, Ottawa, and Toronto, but it's not perfect weather. It's a little bit wet out there. Western Canada, I got your details coming up in the next half hour. For now, we're going to focus on the severe weather threat in the east, and it's coming from this massive low that's south of the border is already prompting some severe thunderstorms. And you can see what almost looks like what's called a bow echo, very gusty winds in advance of that line of storms south of the border. Here at home, we've got some thunderstorms pushing through portions of southern Quebec, west of Gatineau and Montreal this morning. But we do have the likelihood of seeing widespread severe weather continue into our afternoon, particularly through eastern and central Ontario and southern Quebec as well. Environment Canada has already issued severe thunderstorm watches, including Metro Montreal, because of the likelihood of severe weather. So what are we talking? Well, thunderstorms, of course, but within those thunderstorms, very heavy downpours, hail, gusty winds up to about 90 clicks an hour and above, plus possible rotation in central and eastern Ontario and southern Quebec. Here's how it progresses as we head into the afternoon. This is just shy of the supper hour for Eastern time, and you can see these cells are just intense with the amount of rainfall stretching all the way south of the border up through central Quebec as well. Now that will continue to trek its way eastward into the late evening hours through the eastern townships, overnight sliding into New Brunswick and Labrador, and then eventually becoming the weather story through Wednesday and Thursday in through the Atlantic provinces. And behind that, the instability continues through the Great Lakes Thursday afternoon. So we're not out of that thunderstorm season just yet. Stay tuned to any watches or warnings that get issued in your area. For now, here's your local forecast.
Than half
Less
of
than
that.
half. So, like, I thought you were going to say like a tenth of that. Less than half, so $5 million
Wait,
bucks.
you're right. Let's also compute that for a moment.
Wrong housing market. Clearly. Let's move the show. Let's move the show. No, none of us could afford it. This morning, we are following very active weather in eastern Canada. South of the border as well, a line of severe storms crossing its way across the U.S., and this is going to bring active weather right through much of today for eastern Canada. And there is a significant severe weather threat through central and eastern Ontario, southern Quebec as well. Very strong downpours, strong winds, hail, and possible rotation, particularly through eastern Ontario up towards the capital region. Please stay tuned to watches and warnings that get issued in your area. We're already seeing a severe thunderstorm watch, and look at this. Just now, just outside of Ottawa, a severe thunderstorm warning being issued because of active weather happening right now. Difference between a watch and a warning. A watch means that conditions are probable for the development of severe weather. That's what we're seeing for the afternoon. Warning means it's either imminent or currently happening. So it's a tough morning to be heading out onto the roads. I know a lot of us are doing our morning commute, or you're trying to soak up the last minutes of summer with your family, and that's not necessarily the case across the east. For Ontario and Quebec, I guess, but Atlantic Canada, I mean, your summer's still on in full force. We've got 31 right now in Fredericton, or this afternoon, I should say, in Fredericton, 27 for Charlottetown. Temperatures in the low to mid-20s across Newfoundland, Lab City a touch cooler, and you'll see that wetter weather moving in as these thunderstorms track their way up towards you tonight. Portions of western New Brunswick could also see thunderstorms overnight this evening. We have thunderstorms on deck through much of Quebec, through pretty well the entirety of Ontario as well, but again, the more severe weather right in this region here. The likelihood of thunderstorms right across the Great Lakes, though, and further north of Superior. We cross the boundary into Manitoba, though, and the weather changes. 22 today in Winnipeg, a little more sunshine than yesterday. Temperatures rising as we head further west. You see into the mid-20s for Saskatchewan, high 20s in Alberta, and then into the 30-degree range into BC as well. Now, there is the possibility that as we head into the afternoon, we could see some thunderstorms developing in northern Saskatchewan. There's a risk of funnel cloud development as well, thanks to instability through the region in an upper trough, so keep an eye on that. Plus, with high pressure fairly dominant south of the border, this is going to maintain the smoke that's persistent in the BC interior. That's a look across Canada this morning. Now let's send it over to Anne-Marie.
Thank you, Kelsey.
Atlantic Canada, look at this, 20 in St. John's, 20 for Halifax, 21 in Charlottetown, Ottawa, Montreal, Toronto, very warm temperatures, but this is a perfect example of how temperature does not tell the full story. We have thunderstorms already this morning right across Ontario and Quebec, and into the afternoon, a decent risk of widespread thunderstorms. The gray indicates a lower risk of severe weather, but into the yellow, east of Toronto through southern Quebec, we very likely will be talking heavy downpours, hail, also very strong wind gusts, and the likelihood of rotation in eastern Ontario, central and eastern Ontario, southern Quebec as well. And it's all from this low here, this massive low that's south of the border is prompting severe weather already this morning. We've got these storms, as I mentioned, tracking their way east. We're just about to move into the Ottawa area, and now we're seeing that extension of the severe thunderstorm warning in the yellow. So please be aware of the adverse weather moving through your region at this hour. East of that, we've got the severe thunderstorm watch indicative of the conditions later on this afternoon. That's the east. Outside of that region, much more sunshine, including Atlantic Canada, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta. Into BC, though, an air quality advisory still persists because of the smoke from the fires, and the high pressure that's present over the area really maintains that for the next couple of days. North of that, over the ridge, we start to see more cloud. We get a few showers mixed in every once in a while, but generally the weather stays pretty quiet for the west for the next couple of days.